I would like to build a automation together, because I want to show you that building this is really not black magic, that you don't need to be a developer to do this, especially that you don't need to be a developer to build an automation which includes AI. So the use case or the example I'm going to show you and that we're going to build together is hopefully something that also will help you in your daily life. And it's related to feedback collection. I think that in most positions, one way or another, you will at some point collect feedback, right? We do this also all the time. We collect feedback from our users, we collect feedback from our partners, we collect feedback from our team members. So this is a fairly standard process. But I think analyzing this, like let's call them the closed answer questions. So like, how do you like this program from 1 to 10? And you just put a number. This is fairly quick to analyze. The questions that are really tough to analyze or that take a long time to analyze are the open answered questions. And the automation we're going to build together is going to help you with that, because what the automation does, it writes you a summary of every person's submitted feedback. And it tells you whether the general sentiment or feeling of this person's feedback is rather positive, neutral, or negative. So this is something that hopefully should save you quite a bit of time when reviewing things. Okay, so let's get into it. Let me find our right screens. We are going to build this using a couple of tools. And the main tools we're going to use is Airtable, which is what we're going to use for our trigger. Just to remember, we learned about the trigger before. Airtable we're going to use for our trigger. We're going to use OpenAI for our tasks, which is the summarizing of the text and creating the sentiment. And we're going to use Zapier as the application, as the connector, which allows us to bring Airtable and OpenAI together. Since Airtable is our trigger, that's what we're going to get started with. So I'm here in Airtable. Of course, I have an account because we use Airtable on a daily basis. It's probably our most used tool. Exactly. Also, I love Airtable. I can run a whole webinar about why I love
why Airtable is the tool.
Exactly, as I like to call it. It's Excel on steroids, and as you know, I love Excel. So Airtable is like amazing for me. But digression apart. We're going to start with Airtable. You're going to create your account. There's a free account that you can use, and you're going to create a new base. Base is basically, let's call it a little project in Airtable, and you're going to create one starting from scratch. I have already gone ahead and created a base for us today to speed us up a little bit, and this is basically how it looks when you first create a base. So we have this little Airtable project set up. As mentioned, as you might remember, we have the trigger, and previously the trigger was created or was triggered by having a form. This is what we want to do here as well. We have a feedback form, so this is an obvious a candidate for using as a trigger. How are we going to? So we need to create this form because we want to ask our users. Actually, the example you will see is we're asking for feedback for our mentoring program, the DRT mentoring program. So we're going to create a form down here. You're going to continue. And this gets you to this form creator under, you will find it under interfaces. I have already gone ahead and created this form for today, again, to speed up the process a little bit. But in essence, you can really like make your little form. You can create your little form here. Just if you want to go back to the table, you go here to data, and just as a note, every column that you will see here corresponds to a field that is shown in the form. So wonderful! We have this form created here. You will see with evaluation. We have a name and email. We have some questions like some closed answer questions just to show you, and some open answer question where somebody can submit their responses. By the way, you can share this form always. And this is essentially how it looks like. I've already pre-filled it with some answers for later, but basically you can send it to your users. Great, so we have the form ready. Now we get into the fun parts about actually building the automation, because we know how we're gonna trigger the automation, we know how we're gonna get the data into the automation. Just as a disclaimer, I have, when building the form, I have already created the tab, exactly the answers, so that we have something to play with. So we have some example participants that are giving us feedback. And what we want to do is we want to get some summary. So we want to know, what did this person think were the benefits, what were the difficulties and the improvements, and we want to have a summary, and we want to know, is it rather positive, negative, or neutral. So we are now going to go to Zapier. As I mentioned earlier, Zapier is the tool that's going to allow us accessing or connecting Airtable with OpenAI. Zapier is a super powerful tool. I mentioned earlier another tool called Make, and these are tools you will come across quite often when building no-code automations. In essence, they're quite similar in what they do. They each have their pros and cons, into which I won't go into detail. I think on Zapier blog and Mike blog even have some sort of comparison, because they're really the two main tools. And I built this automation using Zapier because Zapier is a little bit easier to start with. So also for you, if you want to create something, I recommend that you start.
And maybe also a helpful metaphor that I remember you using is that Make or Zapier, we can think of it as the glue that holds together all the other tools or actions we want to do.
Correct, exactly. So again, I have an account on Zapier, so I'm not going to create one now, but you can create one. You have a free version, so which gets a few of the actions done, so you should be able to create this. And Zapier gives us, again, similar to what we saw earlier in Airtable, where you had this kind of step-by-step view of what the automation is going to do. Zapier does the same. So it tells you how the steps that the automation is going to carry out. Mm-hmm. And at the top, we always have the trigger. So we're going to work on this automation together, and I'm going to basically guide you step by step. Why do I recommend Zapier? Is because actually Zapier is going to guide us step by step into creating this automation. So there's very few things that you can do wrong. And one other thing I want to mention.
It's always great to know when learning new things.
Exactly. Step by step, right? One other thing. So you might think like, okay, Natalie, but you created this before, and like, I don't know how I'm going to create this from scratch. As Ola mentioned, tomorrow you're going to get the recording of the webinar. And in addition to that, you're going to get 2 templates. And one is going to be basically the template of this Airtable, which includes this data, but also the form. And you're going to get a template of this Zap, which is basically how Zapier calls one automation. So you can literally just import it or copy it into your Zapier and do what we are doing now together by yourself. So don't worry about that. Great. So we have Zapier here. We have Airtable that is recording a new record, which is a form submission. A new record is essentially all of these lines are a record. So as I said, Zapier Zapier guides us through the creation of this. So we're just going to press continue, and we trust Zapier for guiding us through it. Next thing we're going to do, you're going to be asked to connect your Airtable account. Again, I'm already connected. So what you will be doing is you will be either changing, or it will basically guide you through connecting your Airtable account. It's going to open a pop-up window and literally guide you step by step. So you can't go wrong here. We are already connected. And now we're going to set up the trigger that we talked about. And essentially what you need to do, you need to tell Zapier, well, okay, where's this trigger going to be received? It's going to be received in Airtable. And here you literally have the places you can choose from a drop-down menu. You can choose which base and which tab you are going to use for your automation. Our base is called webinar examples. So that's what was already added here. Our table is going to be called feedback submissions. All of these are tables. And the rest you're just going to leave like this. And we continue. Now is a really important step, because while we're building this, we of course need to test that what we're building is working. And with Zapier, you're going to do this as you're building it, which is great because this way you know exactly which steps aren't working and which are working. And what Zapier shows you here is a list of essentially records that we can choose from and that we can test. And these records are essentially the same ones that you're going to see here. Zapier catches them from your Airtable. We're just going to choose Daisy Cooper, okay? So you see we choose Daisy Cooper. Now we get to the Open AI or ChatGPT module, and we do the same step again. We go to continue. We leave it because this is how the module was set up. Of course, when you're going to build your own, there's a bunch of different operations or events that you can decide to do, but we want to summarize the text, so we leave it. We continue. We set up our account again. This is really very simple. You follow exactly. There will be a pop-up. There will be a pop-up and literally links that you just click. You will have to create an OpenAI account, which is for free, and literally just you click on the links. Now we have the action. This looks a little bit scary because there's a lot of a lot of things. Spoiler alert, all of these were pre-populated even when I created this automation, because I used my template myself. I adjusted a little bit, but I used the template myself. The only thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to tell it which text do I want to summarize. And what we are going to select here is we want to know the text from these fields, right? These are the fields that we want to summarize. So what is how that looks in Zapier is that from this record and Airtable, you see here are all the fields that are related to this record. And if you see here the bold ones, these are the names of the columns that are here as well. So what you will basically see here is that you will always have the name of the column in bold, and this is the content of this column. So what we want is we want to have a summary of the benefits. We want to have, we want to have difficulties, and we want to have the improvements. And essentially, I need to get out of here. The rest, again, we leave it as it is. We continue, and we test this step. For me, it's retest because I tested it before, but we basically test it. Great, it works. If it didn't work, you would get an error. You would get an error message. Important is that you have some credits in your OpenAI account, because otherwise this fails. But if you're opening a new account, you will have them, so you should be good. Now we continue, and we do the same step with analyzing the sentiment. So the sentiment being like, is it positive, negative, or neutral? We continue. Now our account will already be connected. We have the action again. We leave everything as it is. The only thing you're going to have to put in here are
just
these.
as the previous step, exactly the same elements.
And here you need to effectively, if you're going to call your columns differently, I don't know, you want to summarize somebody's suggestion points. So you call this column suggestion points. When you're going to click here on the drop down, you're going to find the column suggestion points. Yeah. We continue. We retest the step.
The reason why I'm so excited about this part, that you have it step by step and you have to do retesting, is because we know how fun it can be to have some bugs and mistakes in automation. So we have a whole separate dedicated module to that.
Yes, that's true. And to be honest, I often I do something and I test it, and I know it's probably wrong, but the test will tell me what's wrong. So it's actually a very quick way to develop. Anyways, we continue. And the last step is, now we've summarized the text, we have the sentiment, and we want to get this data back into Airtable. So we want to get it back into these two fields. So we go for the last step, which is updating the record in Airtable. So we have this all set up like before, and now for the action. Same thing, we have a base. This is our base. We have a table. This is our table where our record is. And now, this is very important. We need to tell Airtable which record, so which line should Zapier we need to tell Zapier which line should be updated in Airtable. And for that, we use something called the ID or record ID. Essentially, every one of these lines has a unique ID by which Zapier can then identify, okay, this is the record I should update. And one other thing that's important is that, of course, we want to update the record that came in through the trigger, which might be different every time. So when you're selecting the field here, you need to go under the field custom, because this is what allows you to put dynamic information. Dynamic meaning that for every automation, this will change because, as said, you want to update the automation for every new form submission. So what we do is say, okay, we want to find the record of the submission that came in the beginning. So we go to the record here under Airtable and we select the ID. Now I have two IDs, so that's not going to work. And I have the ID. Now you see here there's a record ID in gray. This just happens to be the ID of the record that we're testing on. If we tested on another one, you would have this dynamic field with another record. And now here you will see these are all the columns that are the same here, right? And we know, well, actually, we want to add the responses from the second module, the summary. We want to add it in this field. And we want to add the response from the third module. We want to add it here. How does that look like? Again, you click here. You have a nice drop-down menu. You go to this second step. You have all the options, all the data related to that second step. And you know, okay, actually, the data I'm interested in is the summary from the second step. I click it. Again, now I have it twice, because I had it here before, and I do it. And now I continue. I retest the step, and now...
Very important point.
Yes, it works. Yeah. So if you have now seen these two fields went red, and essentially it means that all the steps that we have done here, all this data that we have now added here. And let's, for fun, read how OpenAI and how ChatGPT actually summarize this. So the summary is that the importance of verifying skills and gaining deeper knowledge is emphasized in the feedback, and it's recommended to prepare for future sessions with an HR consultant to ensure growth and development. We can talk about whether this is a good quality, but this is a whole other topic on ChatGPT prompts. But in essence, and very important, also we have the feedback sentiment. So ChatGPT assesses that based on the feedback and this rating, this person was very happy, which I guess we agree with.
One of the questions that was asked during the webinar, or as you were showcasing this example, was: does ChatGPT get access to all of the columns, or only the ones indicated that you select from Airtable?
You get access to all of the columns of the Airtable you selected. So I can show you maybe for a second. So you have here. Right. You will see here that you have a base and you have a table. So Airtable and Zapier will get access to all of the columns that are in this base and in this table. There is such a thing as views, so you can actually create some additional views and filters. And if you want to go a little bit more pro, you can limit also to a specific view. So you can say, you know what, I want to only show Zapier, I don't know, I want to only show the ratings. Sorry, this is the wrong thing. I want to hide, I want to hide certain kind of fields and make sure that Zapier only sees certain fields. I can do that and then just tell it, please limit to a certain view, which is either great.
Thank you for showing that. There were some concerns about privacy policy with these kinds of elements, so I just wanted you to have the opportunity to show that you can, of course, manage that on your end when building the automation.
Exactly. And I want to show you one last thing, because, of course, we had a look at testing this automation, and it seemed to have worked because we have the answers. But I want to show you in practice based on the new submission how that looks like. So we have this form that I was showing you before that we built, which is a trigger. And I've pre-filled it with my name and an email and sort of my evaluation of the program. And now I'm going to submit this. And hopefully well, first of all, you can already see my submission here. So
Right.
that was quick. And now it will take a minute. Zapier will work in the background, and hopefully we will be able to see the feedback summary and feedback sentiment here.
Well, the good thing is that we already have responses as if from Anya saying this automation is going to change my life is in the the context of the feedback summary and the positive negative notes. So
great.
I can see
Happy
that,
to
Anya.
hear. Thank you, Anya. And while we wait for this answer, what I also want to make a point is that, as I showed earlier, you can start with one use case and then you can sort of expand it. I've built an additional automation. I won't go into the details, but just to give you some idea what you can do more, which basically summarizes. Now you have a summary of every feedback submission, but maybe you want to have a summary of all the feedbacks in one.
Okay.
So this is what essentially we would get here. So we have the mentoring program, and what this does based on another automation, it literally creates a summary and improvement
like
points.
A one-line summary, as if like out of all of your feedback.
I mean, I didn't give it much information, but essentially you can basically develop this further, and this automation is taking quite a bit of a bit of time.
That's great. It sounds like a perfect example of too long didn't read, and then just like this is what you need to do out of all the 1,000 responses you got.
And just not to so you don't think that I created that that I just did this manually. I show you that. See, there is such an automation which is called summarize all feedback and recommendation, and in essence does a similar thing than what we did before. And while we are still waiting for this answer, and this is actually a disclaimer of using the OpenAI module, because it can actually take quite a bit of time for the API to work. So this is nothing super new. When you're testing, it goes immediate, but if you're submitting it, it may take some time.
No worries. I'll use this time to remind you all sitting with us that basically, as you sign up for the mailing list, tomorrow you will get the video recording, but be sure to stay with us because we're also creating some more free resources for you to learn. So today's session is all about automation, but we're also preparing one on no-code and more on Webflow and other tools that could be helpful also for, as an example, designers, but not only. So be sure to stay with us.
Great. And a reminder or actually a recommendation and encouragement from my end. Tomorrow, when you have the recording of this and when you will have the templates of the Airtable and Zapier, really try to implement this. Try to implement this yourself and try to see that, okay, it might take a few tries and you might have some error messages in Zapier, but I'm sure that you'll be able to build this and you'll see that it's not so difficult.
Yeah, it can also feel very empowering when you feel like, oh, I did that and it works.
Exactly. And again, also don't worry that sometimes things don't work directly as they are supposed to, like we are seeing here. And I will actually check. So now you're going to see me live debugging. See, I wanted to show you or wanted to check why this automation hasn't run yet. So a very quick crash course on Zapier.
Right,
we have this Zap here on the left side. You have a set of different things you can do, and one of them is called Zap Runs. And effectively, it shows you all the times this automation has run, and you will see here that this is the automation that I kicked off by sending the form earlier, and we are still waiting. So it was recorded by Zapier. We are still waiting for an answer, and this is because of the OpenAI API, which unfortunately sometimes takes some time. One thing that I wanted to mention, and I think it's actually quite important. I think great. I didn't make up this automation. It works.
Great.
Now we have here the summary. And as we did before, we could read it. We see that the sentiment is positive. The text discusses the value of a program that helped the writer with their job search. They highlight the benefits of gaining knowledge and that the program has significant impact on their career and entrepreneurial thinking. So this is
sounds about right.